Okay, class starts now. Okay, so what we're going to do first of all is I just want us to do a little bit of mindfulness just to get us to connect with our hearts. I've been doing a lot of work with the charity that I'm involved with, Mind with Heart, and that's basically, we do a lot of mindfulness in schools and for parents and for educators and things like that. And we're doing a lot of self-compassion practices, and the reason being we're doing a lot of self-compassion, which I'm trying to incorporate more now into these Friday and Sunday mindfulness sessions, is because self-compassion is an antidote to the anxiety that we're feeling at this present moment. We had a really good chat this morning when we did our hours mindfulness meditation practice. We talked about a guy called Paul Gilbert, and he said that instead of calling it self-isolation, which can appear quite negative and quite triggering, it would be nice if we renamed it self-relating. And I think self-relating is quite important because at the end of the day, I'm doing this because I'm protecting you from the virus. Self-isolating seems almost like you're taking yourself away from people and that you're put into that situation. But self-relating is all about I'm doing this for the benefit of other people. So I am going to try and change a lot of my references to self-isolating on anything that I've put out on Facebook and this group from now on, if I can't change it. So what I would like us to do first of all is I would love us to check in first of all, 40-minute stretch followed by a 20-minute practice. The 20-minute practice that I want to do, because I'm working more on building a window of tolerance in terms of our nervous system, we're going to do something called pendulation. It's a resource method that you can use for anxiety, particularly for the time that we're in now. I'm finding I'm like this, up and down. The key thing that's keeping me too much like a roller coaster is my mindfulness and my yoga, which I practice every day. Doesn't mean to say that I don't feel worried or anxious, because there's no such thing as perfection. I am utterly human like everybody is, and you know, going out to the supermarket can be an anxious experience, or you know, doing key work stuff such as looking after children can be anxious too. And all of us are in that same kind of position. We worry for ourselves and we worry for other people. So what I'd like to invite you to do, and it's an invitation of course, first of all, is just to connect with ourselves, and more importantly this idea of not putting yourself under too much pressure at this particular time, because we all feel as though we need to have a schedule and do this and do that and achieve something. I would like to point out, everybody, these are my pyjama bottoms and I am not going to take them off today. And I want you to think more about how you're connecting with yourself and self-care, and I want you to really think about connecting with your heart, and think about the words that I'm going to read to you, and think about how they resonate with you as we practice this mindful sort of like 5-minute practice before we go into some breathing to feel centered and calm. So what I'd love you to do then first of all is, if you feel as though you elevate your hips so you've got something there that your spine is long, your chest and your collarbones are open, and you have that nice long spine lifting out of the hips, so you sat with a sense of dignity but with a clear connection with the floor, so you feel grounded. I want you to feel as though the ground is holding and supporting you. Now the traditional, you can place your hands on your knees, I'm cross-legged with my palms facing up or down, or you can place your thumbs touching with your knuckles on top of each other, left hand over right, which is the traditional position used for meditation. So chin slightly tucked into the neck is long, and that you are either with your eyes closed or a soft gaze looking downwards, breathing in through the nose and out through the mouth, whatever feels comfortable for you. And if you feel as though that placing your hands here would be better, if you want to place a hand on the heart instead, because you want to connect with your heart, that's very self-soothing. Or place your right hand underneath your left armpit. Now I know that this is mirroring, it's the other, you're looking at me placing it underneath my other armpit, and you're going into a self-hug. So this self-hug is quite soothing. because we are spending a lot more time on our own. So self-hugging, right hand under armpit, left hand over the top, and you're hugging, or you can place your hand on your left, you place your hand on your heart and your hand on your belly, and connect with your heart, your body, your mind, and your breath. So I just want you to take 3 deep cleansing breaths wherever you are at this moment in time. Nice big inhales and exhale through the mouth. Allow everything to soften. And then what I'd like you to do, excuse me, I'm going to sneeze, is just connect with the breath. Connect with the sensation of the breath, perhaps with the hand or the abdomen, as if there's a balloon behind the belly button, and feel the inhale and the exhale. Nice big deep abdominal breathing. Notice the breath going down the nostrils, down the throat, into the cavity, into the abdomen. And just keep that focus. And if your mind wanders, just gently and kindly bring yourself back to your focus. Nice deep inhales, nice deep exhales. And allow this to be the focus of your mindfulness. And as you keep this focus, keep the breath going. Nice deep inhales and nice deep exhales. Okay. We're going to think about how we can practice non-striving and non-struggling and detachment. And just think about these words and think about what they resonate for you. So I'm going to say some questions and just allow whatever it is that comes up, allow it to happen. Don't struggle, don't push it away, just sit. Allow it to be as it is. So what if everything is okay? What if the universe has my interests at heart? What if the struggle wasn't a personal requirement? What if I saw beauty more and my problems less? What if I lived from a place of love rather than a place of fear? What if I allow myself to just be? What if I know I can't get it wrong? What if my life matters more than I know? What if love is the most powerful force? What if I let go of perfection and expectation? What if I embrace life instead of being on autopilot? What if being here right now is a miracle? This day and this breath. And now try to connect with an intention for this practice, something that allows you to commit to healing and self-care and perhaps even a little bit of meaning. And if that feels difficult for you, dedicate the practice to somebody you think could benefit. To help both you or maybe that other person to get through the roadblocks of today or just life in general. Maybe you perhaps instead have an image, a symbol, something that can assist you in the challenges. It can be a person, something that resonates with you. I have an Ishtadevata. It is a person that I see is representing what I like to think could get me through life. An intention to get you close to something that matters. Remember, no mud, no lotus. So think of that symbol, that image. Think of that intention that I am, whatever it gets you through, or that dedication. And just repeat that silently inside of your mind or visualize. And let's just give thanks and let it go. Okay, so what we're going to do now is, little bell. We're just going to practice a little bit of breathing just to check in. And I want you to be aware of your current breath, your relationship to your breath. This is so important to relax your fight flight into rest, digest and repair. So we'll start first of all with putting our hands on our abdomen. So before we do that, I'd just like you to quickly just notice what is your current relationship with your breath. How is your breath today? Is it short, shallow, fast? Is it tight? Does it feel constricted? Is there anywhere that you feel that you could feel that loosening up? This is our baseline because we're going to stretch it all out and see if we can release that tension into the breath. And so we can soften and then we can relax, because it's so important we connect with our breath and with our movement and our body and our mind all together. After all, yoga means to yoke or bind. So place your hands on your abdomen, okay? And then just breathe into the abdomen. Place your hand on your chest and see if you can keep your chest stable. And imagine that you've got a balloon behind that belly button again. And feel that expansion of your abdomen. Feel it from the front. If it helps, place your hands on the side. See if you can feel it expanding at the sides as well. And maybe in either side of your spine, see that expand too. So we're looking for 360. All around that girdle area. See if you can breathe into that area and feel that expansion always. Now place your thumbs underneath your armpits and place your fingers over your chest into your pectoral area. And see if you can expand into your hands so you can feel that 360 into the chest. So you're feeling the chest expand. And lift outwards this way and forwards rather than lifting up. So instead of breathing into the abdomen now, you're breathing into the chest. And place your hands on your fingertips on your clavicle. It's that bony bit just under the notch of your neck, the lower neck. And see if you can feel in the clavicle, you can feel that expansion, see that lift outwards and upwards. Feel everything lift and expand. So see if we can put all of that together in 3-part dirty breathing, like a wave. So you can place your hands, hand on your belly, hand on your chest, and start from the belly. Then into the chest, then into the clavicle, and then reverse, clavicle down, chest down, and then belly as we exhale. So inhale, expand here, then the chest, then the clavicle, then exhale down the clavicle and the chest, and then the belly. So you're reversing it, inhale, belly, chest, clavicle, then exhale down, clavicle, chest, belly. See if you can keep that at the background to your practice today. If that feels too difficult, just focus on that deep belly breathing. We're going to take ourselves to the floor now. So I'm going to go back onto our mats. Remember, blocks if you need be. Okay. And we're going to start in child's pose. So if that feels uncomfortable for child's pose, 2 blankets handy. You can have underneath your knees. And also you can place something just in between your calves and your shins, like so. You can have your knees wide with your toes to touch, or your knees together. Okay, and we're just going to take our hips back gently towards our heels on the exhale, and slowly take our chest towards our thighs. We're going to tent our fingers, so we're going to feel a nice little bit coming into our Spider-Man fingers. And drop your head to the floor and feel that stretch into the shoulder blades. So we're sort of cupping our hands. Feel that stretch. And just come into the sensations of the body. And just notice your shins on the floor, the tops of your feet if you can. And your fingertips stretching out so you feel that extension underneath the armpits. And into the shoulders so you get that deep, deep stretch. If that feels uncomfortable, just gently drop your palms towards the floor and just feel that stretch in the shoulders and the armpit. And just settle into the breath. Deep inhale through the nose, deep inhale out. And then bring your elbows either side of your ears. As you bring your hands into prayer position on the floor above your head, then on the exhale, bring the backs of your hands with your prayer position into the back of the neck and feel that stretch underneath here, into the tricep and feel that stretch there. If you feel as though you want to go a little bit deeper and you've got 2 blocks, you can come into a gentle puppy stretch. So I'm just going to grab 2 blocks here. So I'm going to place these 2 blocks here. I'm going to place my elbows shoulder distance apart. Got my hips just underneath my knees, sorry, above my knees. And I'm just going to take my elbows wide enough to drop my head in between my upper arms and take the thumbs and the backs into the behind my neck and feel that stretch. And just relax into it. So if you feel any sensations, any fizziness, just release and back off. Just only move into the stretch and do whatever feels comfortable for you. Nice deep inhales, nice deep exhales. Connect with the ground, connect with the breath. And then very gently come all the way up. Push your hands underneath your shoulders and then release. So what we're going to do now, obviously with child, is we're going to come into a nice gentle movement. So we're going to come onto our shins, so we're coming into thunderbolt pose, and we're going to connect both breath and movement, mind and body. So we're on our shins like so, padding the knees to make it feel comfortable. You can roll your mat up. Nice big inhale, take your arms wide if that feels comfortable, and then exhale very, very slowly as you come down into child's pose. Take your hips back towards your heels, cross your hands behind your back and your lower sacrum and take your forehead to the floor. And then inhale to come up as long as it takes you. Take your arms, root to rise and extend, and then exhale, cross your hands in the opposite direction. Try to fold from your hips, keep that extension in the neck and in the spine. Lengthen, lengthen, lengthen. Press into the floor and lift and root to rise. Alternating the crossing of the hands as you take your hips back, nice and slow and gently. And exhale. Now I realise obviously this has always been a bit of an experiment for me. I will say the opposite, because I'm mirroring you. When I say right, you think I'm doing my left, so I'm going to get that right today. I've been reviewing my videos and looking how they look for you over there, and I'm adjusting them accordingly. So breath and movement, really good. We're just warming up the hips and we're just warming up our bodies, and then release. So do whatever feels comfortable for you, if that feels good. So I'm just going to turn around a little bit so you can see me, keeping my knees padded. Lovely. So what we're going to do now then, obviously, is we're going to come into tabletop, and obviously jazz hands. I really want to see our fingers nice and wide, nice and stable. If you've got very tender wrists, it's nice to just create a little bit of a, place your heel of your palm here, especially if you've got carpal tunnel, okay, and place that just a little bit underneath that padding there. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to show you here. So we've got shoulders of our wrists, don't collapse. I'll just turn it to the side. Try not to collapse into your shoulders. So if you sink into your shoulders, push the ground away, okay. Nice strong core, sort of hollow out your belly and pull that belly in. Lovely, that's really important. So what we're going to do now is we're just going to do some nice hip and knee circles, but we'll start with doing some nice circle with our hips. So we're just warming everything up. So imagine, again, oof, just like Grace Jones with my hula hoop. Okay, so I've stacked my joints and I'm just hula hooping and working and drawing circles, going one direction 5 times and then the other. Remember not to collapse into the shoulders, pressing into the floor lightly, padding your knees, padding the heel of your palms, and then reverse. We're just lubricating. And also, we've talked about this in my last Sunday service, about the importance of circling, moving, getting all the energy moving around, the stuck energy. Because we're stuck inside, we're feeling stuck. Now, obviously, ooh, dog against a hydrant. Ooh, so we're going to get those knees moving as well. So we're just going to draw some circles with our knees. Keep your balance, make sure you've got your balance. Just draw some circles, doesn't matter how big they are, make sure your knees are wide enough so you've got that stability to be able to draw circles with your knees. And then reverse. Oof. And then we're going to come into something called gate pose. So I'm going to turn around so you can see me. I'm going to take my right leg out so that my heel is in line with my hip and my toes are pointing. Sorry, that to you, that's your left. You're mirroring me. I'll say that again. So your foot is pointing forward. Okay, my knee is directly underneath my hip, so I'm nicely stacked. So we're going to come with a nice inner thigh stretch. Very slowly, take your hands towards your hips and come up. We're going to come into gate pose, stacked. That's out to the side, nice and parallel with my hip. Take your hand onto the outstretched leg. Inhale, take your arms up, lengthen, and then side bend. Keep your chest lifted. Rather than collapsing forward, feel that lengthening all the way down the side. So you get that inner thigh stretch. Make sure you've got nicely padding underneath that knee. Just protect that knee, keep that chest lifted. And then inhale to come up, and then exhale, release. Let's do that on the opposite side. So again, going into that, make sure your knees are wide enough so you've got stability. Make sure that you've got plenty of padding for the knees and the heel of your palm. Take that leg out and just give it a nice bit of a circle. Just get all that crankiness out. 5 times and then reverse. It's always the hip joints, really working on releasing that body tension. When we're confined, we just need to take up more space, don't we? When we're confined, we're going to store all that tension up in our hips and our hamstrings and our upper body, and we need to get it all ironed out. Lovely. So get ready for your gate pose. Take the opposite leg out to the one you did before, toes pointing forward, that ankle in line with your hip, and then gently come up, Hands on hips, make sure that knee's underneath there. Nice big inhale. Lengthen, side body, make sure you're not collapsing forward. Hand on the thigh there and side bend. And just feel that stretch all the way down into there. If you can keep that arm active, you can get right into that QL muscle, the muscle either side of your spine. It always gets cranky when you sat a lot. That's just above your hips, that hip stabilising quadratus lumborum, the Harry Potter muscle. Sounds like a spell. Okay, inhale to come up and exhale, release. Now what we're going to do now, obviously, with this position, we're going to come into a nice cat-cow child's flow, just to get everything nicely mobilised and keep the spine nice and healthy, nice and flexible. As the lovely yoga teacher Vanda Scaravelli said, you're aging your spine. Okay, keeping it youthful. So get yourself back into tabletop again. Padding if you need it. Stack your joints again. Wrists. So your hands are shoulder distance, knees hip distance. So come into cow. Inhale, drop your belly towards the floor. Arch your belly towards the floor. Press. Make sure you're pressing the ground away from you so you're not sagging into your shoulders. Head up. And then as you exhale and round your back like a cat, push your hips back and come into child's pose and come back as far as it feels comfortable, only move into the stretch. Inhale, come up, cow, drop the belly, exhale, round, look between your knees and push back gently. So we'll do that 3 more times. Head up, belly down, exhale, round, pushing into child's. Inhale up, belly down, head up, and exhale round, pulling that core in, working that spine, feeling that stretch. You can feel it in your shoulders, feel it in your hips, feel it in your spine. Inhale, exhale. Just go with the flow, just do what feels comfortable for you. And then slowly release and come back to the body and just check in a little bit. Do whatever feels comfortable. You can make a pillow with your hands and just come back to any sensations and just notice how you feel there. And just come back to the breath, come back to sensation, come back to the floor. It's always important to check in. So what we're going to do now then, okay, is we're going to be working on, I'm just going to move this slightly because a lot of things are getting in the way. We're going to come into some nice little back bends and some nice stretches. You will need blocks, you will need something to help you. So I'm going to put something at the front because we're going to do some deep hip flex stretches, okay? And we're going to do all sorts of other stuff. So as well, if you haven't already got a strap, I forgot to mention that at the beginning, it's alright, you can always run off and get yourself a belt from your dressing gown or a tie or something similar. Just grab it. Okay, so what we're going to do, I'm just going to put that back there, is we're going to come into Cobra because I like this just underneath my hips. Okay, so if you're in tabletop, just come all the way down onto the floor, all the way down nicely, and you've got that nice padding underneath your hips. So we're coming to a nice gentle back bend. Okay, we're going to practice that. Always come into a counter position such as child's pose, so you're going in the opposite direction. So I like to put my feet into the corner of the mat with all my 10 toes facing down, so they're very, very grounded, and my front of my pelvis is pushing into the floor to extend my lower back. It's really important that you can place your hands underneath your shoulders and try not to take your head back. Keep your neck as an extension of the spine. You're really trying to lift forward rather than pushing up, okay, because we don't want to cause any pain there. Place your hands underneath your shoulders and then press your hips into the floor and your toes and squeeze your shoulder blades and your elbows together as if there's a magnet in between them, and just gently lift, really pressing into the floor and then come all the way down. Now I like to do this on an exhale because I like to pull my lower ribs in and my core in, keep it nice and strong. So push up Squeeze on the exhale. Pull that core in nice and strong. And inhale to lower. And one more time, squeezing everything. Squeeze, 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 squeeze. Press hips to the floor. And then lower and make a pillow with your hands. Just wiggle your hips from side to side just to release any tension in that lower back. Placing hands underneath shoulders and pushing back into child's if that feels comfortable for you. Because we're going to come into Sphinx pose in a minute, which is another back bend stretch. So really what we're doing is we're doing a lot of sitting at the moment, probably. I don't know about you, I am. And we're sort of rounding forward, so to come the opposite direction is really nice. So we're coming into Sphinx pose. Again, feet in the corners of the mat, toes down, pressing the hips into the floor and elbows directly underneath shoulders. Measure that your elbows are exactly shoulder distance apart by doing that. And so imagine that the Egyptian Sphinx walk like an Egyptian. Okay, so feet in the corner of the mat, press the hips down, elbows underneath. Okay, elbows underneath the shoulders. As you press your hips into the floor, really press your forearms into the floor and lift and lengthen. And where your heart centre is, push your heart through your upper arms and separate your ears away from your shoulders. So don't be wearing your pat butchers, shoulders as earrings. Lift and separate, push, 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 down and through. So I'm pushing my forearms to the floor, I'm pushing my hips into the floor, my 10 toes into the floor, and I'm pushing my chest through my forearms and my chin slightly tucked. Make sure my neck is a length and extension of my spine, so I'm not knocking it back. Don't forget to breathe. It sometimes happens when we're if it feels uncomfortable, come out of it straight away into child's pose. Don't forget to breathe. And then slowly come down and release. Make a pillow with your hands, wiggle your hips from side to side, and push your hips back. And come into child's pose in that counter position, so you get rid of all that crankiness as you go back. Oh, oof. Certainly feeling that one, but it's just nice. Oh. So we're in child's pose and we're going to come into a downward facing dog, and we're going to come into some deep stretches now. There's a lot of hip and hip flexor based, so I'm going to use my blocks anyway to help me, or anything like that that's useful. So tabletop, jazz hands. I really want to see those fingers nice and wide. Press into the knuckles, the thumb, your index finger, and to really try not to put the weight into the heel of the palm. Okay, your hands are shoulder distance and your knees and your feet are shoulder distance. Tuck your toes under, and on the exhale, try to keep your knees as soft as possible. Push your hips up and back and your chest towards your thighs. Now, if this feels uncomfortable, just do a modified version. Of child's pose, puppy, and puppy's like more or less with your hips, with your knees like that. So if that feels more comfortable, go into puppy like that. Otherwise, tucking, chest. So if your hamstrings are feeling really cranky and your shoulders are above your wrists, like so, bend your knees to push your chest towards your thighs so you come more into a nice flat back. Long line of energy from the middle fingers to your tailbone. Pressing back. You're on the balls of your feet and you're not pressing into the heels of your fingers. Allow your upper arms to roll slightly out. If it feels uncomfortable, dial your fingers out. Dial your middle fingers out slightly to open up the space in between your shoulder blades. And just give it a little bit of a wiggle with those heels up and down. Just a little bit of pedaling just to get into those hamstrings. Try not to push too much. You know, if you feel as though you've got your hamstrings feel quite flexible, we're not aiming for straight legs at all. It's our first stretch of the day. in this quite deep pose, which is quite challenging. So your shoulders are going to feel really, really tight, so drop your knees and come out of it. It's quite a strong position, and it's the only really strong position we're going to be holding today. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be taking our right leg forward, okay, and we're just going to come into a low lunge position, Anjanasana. Place a blanket underneath that knee that's on the floor. The front knee aligned over your front ankle, and just push yourself up gently, okay. So this knee, if you can see it, I'll just swap just for the sake of seeing that knee's not directly underneath the hip, so we're moving into that hip flexor, and we're just going to have a little bit of a stretch there. So really pressing and grounding down to that front foot. And I want you to sort of imagine that you're pulling the front foot back and you're pulling the back leg forward, as I like to call it. Pauline remembers, it's a Brucey bonus, the price is right. I tend to do that with my hands when I do that. So try to keep your shoulders over your hips. Okay, so we're coming into this little bit of a deep stretch. Now, getting into this hip flexor a little bit and the psoas muscle, squeeze that right glute. Squeeze the glute with the knee on the floor, and the same arm of the knee on the floor, squeeze that glute, place the opposite hand on the bent knee and do a little bit of a side bend. Keep your chest lifted, a little bit of a side bend, squeezing the glute with the knee on the floor, keeping that traction between front and back legs, and you're working into that psoas muscle, which gets quite tight. When it's very, you know, it can get tight, and then release on the exhale. So we're going to come into something which is called lizard pose. If this is quite intense, just be aware of that and only move into the stretch and what feels comfortable. You'll need the blocks for this, okay? You will definitely need the blocks for this. So you take whatever foot is forward in front and you take it to the edge of the mat. So I've got my foot here pointing, okay, whichever way it is, it's pointing towards about 11 o'clock, okay. So it's pointing to the side. So my knee is going into the same direction. So to come into that deep stretch, I'm going to place my hands on the blocks, okay, and just take my knee back a little bit. This is called lizard pose. Try to pull that knee in. Don't let it flop out to the side. Try to pull that knee in towards your shoulder and your elbows so it's not flopping out to the side. And keep your chest lifted, your heart going forward, and that you're pulling through your upper arms and you're not collapsing onto, you're not dumping into your shoulders, you're keeping your ears away from your shoulders so you can feel that deep stretch. Come out of it, just move into the stretch, but come out of it, it feels uncomfortable. Because it's quite a deep stretch. It's quite a deep stretch, this. So we're moving into the hip flexors. A lot of this stuff to do with fight or flight tension, hips, hamstrings, hip flexors. Now, two options here. Be very, very careful. Pigeon, very, very sharp on the knees. So we've got two options for pigeon. I'm going to come into pigeon on my front, but I'll give you an option. The pigeon on the front. Okay, so you have two options here. You can do it on your back. You can use a strap, but you must always make sure that your tailbone and your head and your back of your neck is on the floor. So the strap is going around the thigh of the bent leg with the foot on the floor, the opposite leg bent over, so your ankle is on your thigh, and you use the strap to gently bring the shin of the top leg towards your head, rather than bring your head towards you. Now, that's a good one for really, really cranky knees. Okay, so I was in that version here. Now, coming into pigeon, if you go into that one, coming into pigeon for this one here. So this foot is going to come across, scooch across, and the back leg, your back leg, you're going to come down, gently scooch your hips towards the floor, That back leg is straight, okay, and this obviously these hip points are level, so you may need to stick something underneath, okay, the hip of the bent leg just to keep it nice and level, such as a block or a blanket. So you can come up here or slowly come down. So that's quite an intense stretch. So just only move into it, don't push past it, and don't forget to breathe. Now wherever you are, whether you're pigeon on your back or pigeon on your front, we're going to come into, okay, deer pose or mermaid. So this involves leaning out if you're in pigeon on your front and swinging the back leg round and making a square. So what I mean by that is, okay, always flexing your feet, use a block for support so you're not going wonky donkey. My front shin is straight and in line with the front line of the mat, and my back leg, my knee, is touching the heel of the front leg, and it's straight with the long side of the mat with both feet flexed. So this is called deer pose or mermaid. Sometimes it's nice to have blocks to just lengthen. Now, what we end up doing with this position, if this feels uncomfortable, just be careful if you've got dodgy knees. If this feels really, really uncomfortable, okay, I would rather you do something different to this. Okay, I would rather that you worked on a gentle hip opener, so you can do anything such as just bring yourself into this here. You won't get the internal and external rotation, but you'll get the hip stretch here as well. Bring your feet together and fold, leading with your heart. Now if you are okay in mermaid, and that feels okay, using your blocks to keep you supported, interlace your fingers, flip your grip, and then we're going to lift your palms all the way up towards the ceiling and feel that extension lift from left and right side of your body. See if you can lift and stretch that up. If that feels uncomfortable, just use your blocks to kind of lift and lengthen your spine and your chest up towards the ceiling, ears separated from your shoulders. And then very, very slowly we're going to come around and bring this leg round. The back leg is going to come round and place that on the block in front of the front shin. So we're coming into double pigeon. So this back leg, really swing it out. It's going to feel a little bit cranky. Don't worry, we're going to loosen that off a little bit. And a block in front of the lower leg, so you come into a version of double pigeon. So you can stay here because you'll feel that stretch in that outer hip of the top leg, right into that IT band and the TFL. Really good for stretching that out, especially if you get IT band syndrome, which can affect your knee alignment and your patella. Nice big inhale to lengthen your spine, and exhale, fold, leading with your chest. Only till you feel that stretch in the outer hip. And then inhale to lengthen. Now whichever leg's on top, we're going to come into a hamstring stretch. So this leg is going to come forward, okay, and this leg here, the sole of the foot, the knee is bent and it's coming inside the thigh. Just to get some elevation, this really, really helps. Pop something underneath your hip. A little bit of elevation there. That helps you to tilt your pelvis forward so you get a nice long spine, and it helps in this stretch. This is a deep hamstring stretch, and you will need a strap or a belt from your dressing gown. Place that around the ball of the foot. Try not to lock this knee out, but to squeeze the thigh muscle up towards your hip. Nice big inhale. Squeeze the kneecap up towards the hip with that thigh muscle and lead with your chest. And come into a fold with the flat back until you moving into that stretch into the hamstring. Keep squeezing those thigh muscles to release the hamstring with the reciprocal inhibition. Don't forget to breathe. Keep grounded, keep focusing on the breath. And then inhale to lengthen the spine as you come all the way up with a flat back. So this bent knee here, place this over the top of the leg that is straight. We're just going to come into a nice seated twist. So whichever knee is bent, opposite arm, cup it around it like so. Really lift out of the hips, flex that foot. Inhale to lengthen the spine. Lovely. And on the exhale, twist towards the hip of the bent knee on top of the opposite leg. And come to that twist. And only if that feels comfortable with the neck, look behind. And inhale to lengthen before you exhale, twist and come back to the centre. Lovely. So we're just going to get that crankiness out of our hips before we move to the opposite side. So take your feet to the edge of the mat, place your hands behind you, fingertips facing forward towards the hips. And if your knees are wide, your feet are wide enough, just make nice little windscreen wipers dropping from left to right. Now if you didn't want to do the deer pose, this one, you can do this one instead of deer pose because you get the internal external rotation with this one. Right into the hips, keeps the joint nice and lubricated. So we're going to do all of that all on the opposite side. So if everything feels a little bit cranky, let me know. Remember, only move into what's safe and possible for you. Always know your limits. Modify it if necessary. So, we're doing low lunge the opposite side. So, I'm taking my left, so I'm going to pad my knees again. Don't have the greatest of knees, I must admit. So it's the opposite knee this time. Okay, so we're taking that hip slightly forward of that knee. So we're getting into that hip flexing, giving that stretch. Knee over ankle. Okay. And use your hands to push your shoulders over your hips. Nice. So it's the opposite way around, I seem to remember. There we are. And then remember what we're going to be doing is we're going to be squeezing the glute of the knee on the floor. At the same time using that traction of pulling that foot back as if you're trying to get that foot to meet this knee and this knee to meet the foot. So we're using a bit of traction, squeeze that glute. Inhale, take your arm up and then side bend towards that knee that's bent at the front. Keep your chest lifted, so we're working into that deep psoas muscle stretch here. That really important muscle that maintains and holds a lot of tension, and there's no such thing as shortening, but gets tight. And then inhale to lengthen back and exhale, release. So blocks, coming into that lizard pose, really coming into that deep, deep stretch. So you'll need your blocks at the front and just take that foot, so you can see that I'm taking that foot out to the side, knee going in the direction of the toes, it's coming at the edge of the mat, and I'm coming lower down, my hips are coming lower down towards the floor. So I'm getting that deep stretch in the hip flexor, and I'm pushing my chest through my arms, so I'm not collapsing, and I'm pushing through, and I'm getting that deep stretch all the way inside that inner thigh muscle. Try to keep that knee tucked in to your arm, so it's not splaying out. So we're doing a little bit of lizard. Don't forget to breathe. Don't forget to focus on the ground, and don't forget to focus on the breath. Been very serious tonight, haven't I? Ooh, it's been a stressful week. This is just what the doctor ordered. It's been up and down. Okay, so if you're not doing pigeon on the floor, this pigeon, you know, the pigeon where you're doing it like this. One, if you've got delicate knees, this one, strap around the thigh, bent knee, ankle on top, tailbone and back of the neck on the floor. Exhale, bring that shin towards you using the strap for guidance. Okay, otherwise, okie dokie. Coming into pigeon, don't forget you need your props around you. So this foot's going across and the knees coming down to the floor. The back leg is straight behind you and you bring both your hip points closer to the floor. This is a deep hip opener stretch. You can place your forearms on your blocks or your hands on the floor. Pop something underneath that hip of the bent leg just to give you that extra bit of support, especially if both of your hips feel a bit wonky donkey. I'm going to put my forearms on here. Oh, pigeon. Depends what you like, pigeon. It's quite, sorry, excuse me if you're vegan or vegetarian, quite tasty. Especially if it's pan fried with a bit of blackberry jus. Sorry. My mind was drifting off there, not being very mindful. Bring myself back to my focus. So we're getting really into that hip flexor and we're really getting into these hip rotator muscles in that, especially good for the sciatic nerve. So if you've got sciatica, perfect stretch for that. Okay, remember what we're doing, wonky donkey. We're fligging our leg around because we're coming into mermaid. Now, if mermaid is not for you, just do that. So mermaid is when you're creating a square with your legs. So my right shin, the shin here is in line with the front side of the mat, flex that foot. This knee is behind the heel, flexing that foot in line with the long side of the mat. I like to use my blocks to stop me from wobbling over. So we're coming into that deep hip rotation. So interlace your fingers, try to keep your shoulder of your hip. It's all about levelling and using your core and your strength to keep you fairly stable and upright. And then inhale, lift and lengthen all the way up through left and right side body. It's a little bit of a yin practice, this one. I've just realised it's quite yin. Yin yoga, holding long poses. They're very stretchy on the floor. And then release. Oof. Sometimes it's quite nice, sometimes when you do one of these little, just giving that knee a little bit of a, ooh, getting right into that joint. Double pigeon or fire log, whichever way you want to call it. Love a fire log. Okay, so swing out, give yourself plenty of room to swing that back leg round and place it on a block in front of your bottom shin. Again, working into that IT band, getting into that TFL, getting into that cranky space. If you get IT band here, you know, it can misalign the patella here and cause a little bit, it has caused, I must admit it's caused problem for my left patella, and my knee alignment is not tracking properly, so no cartilage in the knee. Inhale to lengthen, keep flexing the feet towards your knees. Exhale, fold the flat back, leading with your chest. Only move into the stretch and come as far as you need to go, neck in line with your spine. And don't forget to breathe. And then inhale to lift and lengthen as you come all the way back up. And then just remember what we're doing here. We're coming into that stretch. So remember what we're doing Janushirshasana. Sometimes I can't say it. Straighten out the opposite leg to what you had last time. Bend the knee, sole of the foot inside the thigh. Strap to the ready. Don't lock the knee out, but squeeze the quad muscle. Folding from the hip crease. Inhale to lengthen, 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 and lead with the abdomen and the chest. Keep the spine long and the chest lifted, moving into that stretch. So moving into that hamstring stretch. Just keep squeezing the quad to release the hamstring. Don't forget to breathe. Focus on your ground, focus on the breath. then we're going into that nice seated twist. So this leg, place the sole of the foot, place it over the straight leg. So the knee is coming up. If you don't forget to have those hips sort of slightly elevated, gives you that little bit of extra lift. Inhale to lengthen. So opposite arm to bent knee, inhale to lengthen, flex the feet, exhale, twist from above the waist. And if that feels comfortable, move your head around. Inhale to lengthen before you exhale and come back. Now, just to level things out, because I realise that I like to always level things out if we've done asymmetric poses, just to keep that SI joint healthy and everything else going, because, you know, mine's a bit cranky sometimes and it slips. SI joint, that piece in the bottom of the pelvis, age, menopause, having kids, sometimes it can be a bit cranky. So place your strap around the balls of both of your feet. You can have your knees bent if you want. No need to keep both legs straight. Remember your hamstrings, you're only moving into the stretch, you're not forcing it, so you can have your knees soft, chest lifted, spine long, and fold with a flat back and come forward, whichever feels comfortable for you. But always, if you're coming into this position with your knees straighter, micro bend the knee, really squeeze the quads as you come forward with the flat back, moving into that stretch into the hamstrings. That elevation of the hip there, blanket underneath there, helps you to get the pelvis tilting nicely forward, so you get that deep stretch there into the hamstrings. And then inhale to lengthen, lengthen, lengthen as you come up, and let's get rid of that crankiness in our hips. So just come into that windscreen wiper again, feet edge of the mat, fingertips pointed towards the hips, and just nicely drop knees from side to side, just releasing all that deep hip movement and stretches we've just done. Now we're just coming towards the end of this stretching practice, which means that I'll be hopefully inviting you to get yourself nice and comfy for our guided relaxation that I'm going to take you through, which is a 20-minute one, which means that you can set the mood. Whatever you like, soft lighting, blankets, eye masks, anything you need at all. That's really important. So we'll just finish that off a little bit. We'll just come into a nice deep twist before we settle ourselves into Shavasana, corpse pose, the final resting pose. I realise that a lot of this is a lot of lower body stuff today. We did a lot of upper body last week, quite a bit of upper body in Wednesday night's class. We've got mindfulness class 6 PM on Sunday, so it's just a half an hour one, short introduction. Hopefully keep that one going, which is nice. And just lying your back with your arms in T position, goalposts. Jumpers for goalposts, knees bent, place your cross, it's all done in the best possible taste. Left, cross one leg over the other bent leg, and come into, and gently on the exhale, drop your knees all the way over to one side. Keep your shoulder blades nicely glued to the mat. If you want to gently guide that, place your hands nearest to those bent knees and place it on top. Feel that lengthening all the way down the side body. Then inhale, knees all the way back up to centre, uncross, and then cross right, opposite leg over the top. All done in the best possible taste. Can you have it? And then very slowly on the exhale, drop knees all the way over to the opposite side. Shoulder blades nicely glued on the mat. If it feels comfortable in your neck, you can look away in the opposite direction to the knees and place hand closest to the bent knees on top. Then inhale back up to centre, and then one last final squeeze just to release that tension in the lower back. Squeeze your knees in towards your chest. Just rock a little bit from side to side in Apanasana, which is basically means wind relieving pose. Wonder why they called it that. Wouldn't suggest beans before yoga then. And then get ready for your practice. So I'm going to turn off the lights. Get your blankets ready and your eye mask. I think the most important thing here is comfort. You need as much comfort as you need for the next 20 minutes. Bolster underneath the knees, anything will do, can be rolled up and placed underneath your knees to get your lower back close to the floor, particularly if you've got any lower back tension. If you've got an eye mask or anything else, anything that can go over the eyes, such as a flannel, is quite nice. Cover yourself with your blankets to keep warm, because your body temperature will drop quite quickly after we've moved our bodies around a little bit. And it's so important that we allow our bodies to settle and to take the benefits of the pose. Shavasana is the one that people always seem to want to run off from. It's the most important and the most difficult pose to do. So if you want to do this, get all your blankets over the top of you, put your socks back on, cardigans, whatever. When I taught my teens, obviously before this happened, they would put their jackets, they would zip them up, they would just turn into little snug bugs in rugs, and they were absolutely gorgeous. I'm going to put my socks on, and I'm going to sit closer to the camera, because I remember, I'm very aware that my soft dulcet tones, I'm going to try and hold the space while you get settled. And I'm going to take you through the relaxation. Now, I will lead you in and lead you out. There will be a bell at the end. Don't worry, I won't leave you hanging. If you're worried, you won't fall asleep with this one, but if you're worried, you will. And bearing in mind what time it is, it's, oh, no, blimey, it's 7 o'clock. Set the alarm for 30 or 35 minutes past if you want, but only on vibrate, because if the bell goes and I'm still talking, have it vibrating, so it won't wake us all up. So, get yourself into position and ask yourself if you can be 5 or 10% more comfortable. And then allow the body to settle. Wiggle around, get soft, nice and comfortable. Be aware of the time of the day, the room that you're in. I'd like you to take 3 calming, deep breaths. In through the nose and out through the mouth. And allow your spine to stretch and lengthen. Eyes closed. And just notice the ground and the energy coming up from the ground. And with each out breath, allow the face to soften. And with each inhale, imagine that the breath is travelling up through the body, and with each exhale, travelling, settling down, and your body softening. And we're going to practice with intensity of experience to help us deal with the challenge of what we're going through at this particular moment, to help us find balance. So I'm inviting you not to push, to pull or to fight. Allow this experience to be open and smooth. Allow it to feel like pause in what is happening around us at this moment, and that you greet it with peace and equanimity, a sense of balance and non-resistance. Allow whatever is happening to come to you. Put out the welcome mat for whatever you are to experience, with detachment, without judgment, without grasping. And just notice the sounds. Practice non-attachment with my voice. Notice my voice rolling out to you, towards you, through you, without you even catching it. Feeling open, spacious, without attachment. Stepping back, feeling open only as much as you feel you can be. There is no ideal solution. Nothing to resolve anything that is happening now. Remember, you are only going in a forward direction. And to help you with this practice, I want you to imagine that you're having a warm shower. Imagine that you're feeling relaxed. There is a natural sense of letting go, that everything is open to you. Your pores are opening. You feel the warm water, the muscles relaxing. But you have not paid your electricity bill. So the water is getting cooler. Naturally, imagine that you would reflexively tighten all your muscles to block out the cold. This is our natural response. But instead, what if you let go rather than tightening your muscles? What if you felt the cold without bracing? What if you felt open to it, so it doesn't feel like a problem? Feel the cold, letting it be there without fighting, resisting, bracing, tensing, being open to all. Imagine that this shower is a metaphor for being open to all emotions, good or bad, greeting them with poise and maturity. But if it's too intense, we can do something about it. We can swing our attention to comfort, to our resourcing, to something we called our home base. Find something now in your body that is your home base. Find something that feels comfortable. Maybe it's your hands, your feet, your breath, a pleasant sound, or maybe even just nothing at all, a blank feeling. This is your home base. This is your resource. This is the place that you go to and into to feel good when things get too intense, like that cold shower. Find that space in your body or outside of your body. Go into it, feel around it, wiggle into it, sit with it, explore it. If it's your hands or your feet, guide yourself around it. Stay with it. If it's a sound, allow the textures of sound to drift and go through you, moving from sound to sound. Sink into your home base. Know that this is the place to come back to any time, to build your capacity to feel safe. Now in silence, explore your home base and how it feels to you. Now turn away from your home base, that place of comfort, your resource, and turn to something that's just a little bit intense. It might be your knees or your lower back hurting, an agitation in your nervous system, an intense boredom, a feeling of fear or anxiousness. It can be a feeling like anger, or it could just be that pain or tension in the body, such as stress in the shoulders. These intensities will always be in our lives. The only certainty is that there will be suffering. Open up into that space. Find the opening. Find that place that feels intense, whether it's a physical sensation or an emotional sensation. If it's too much, imagine it like a pile of tennis balls and you're exploring the edge just around it. Open into it, like the cold shower. Don't resist it. Explore around it. Be curious. Where is the edge of that sensation or that emotion? Where is the centre of that agitation? Can you welcome it? Can you say hello? It's not the enemy to be cut off. We put out the welcome mat to all experiences and feelings. This is what makes us human. Can you include it? Can you say that this is a part of me? This is my world. Just notice it and see what happens. Just follow that intensity. Does it stay the same? Does it become more intense? Or does it lessen? Notice, feel into the sensation, whatever it is. If it gets too intense, is this pain a messenger? How can it teach you? How can you be free of it? Can you be poised with it? Can you act with maturity with it? If it's too much, how are you to turn back to your home base? If the sensation is too much, turn back as long as you need to. Stay back in your home base, curl into it, nestle into your home base, recharge in your home base until you feel comfortable enough to go back. And if you can, imagine that your attention is like a pendulum. Swing and explore that pendulation, even if you are just moving from a tiny itch to your home base, or even an intense feeling of grief or sadness or anxiousness as you go backwards and forwards. Try it for a bit. Being human is facing it. Awareness without it means that you are unconscious and you're not living your life. See if you can sit in the middle of it. Can you embrace it with compassion? Because whatever it is, it's part of you. Play with the pendulation, backwards and forwards, backwards and forwards, between the intense sensation and the place of home. Can you softly open into it? Can you breathe into it? If it spikes with intensity, just swing back to your home base. Stay there till you're ready to go back to the sensation. Do this with love and compassion. Do this without judgment. Judgment is just our way of trying to protect ourselves, to limit ourselves. Judgment limits us intellectually. Are you recognizing and questioning old, tight habits of judgment? Are you brave enough? Can you let go? Can you not resist? Can you sit in the heart of that sensation? Have you got a heart big enough to accept that there are no limits and no judgments? Now spend some time going backwards and forwards between intensity and home base. Observe. Don't attach. See what happens. Let go. Breathe. Be detached, not judge. Sit with it. Whatever it is part of you. Whatever arises, let it arise. Mindfulness is putting a welcome mat out even to the most difficult pains and experiences. This, being human, is a guest house. We welcome all sorrows and joys. When you feel it's time to let it go, when it's right for you, when you want to let go of the intensity and the pendulation, Just let out a long out breath. Just be as you are in this moment, awake, aware, centered, poised, but letting go. Let the moment to just play out. Now gently allow yourself to come back to your senses. Breath, contact with the ground, eyes though closed, tactile sensations, smells in the nostrils, and become aware of sounds. And start to give yourselves time to move and wiggle and stretch and do whatever feels right for you at this present moment. Thank you very much. Namaste.